U.S. Senate has approved a bill that could see lawmakers remove Hong Kong's special status as a free trade port. Is the U.S. really thinking about what's best for Hong Kong or acting in its own self-interest? And two U.S. reports have been released this month, both taking a dim view of China's AI development. Why does the U.S. seem determined to undermine China's technological achievements? Welcome to The Point, an opinion show coming to you live from Beijing. I'm Li Xin. The passage of two Hong Kong-related acts, including the so-called Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act, has provoked an indignant response from China. The act requires the U.S. State Department to report to Congress on an annual basis as to whether Hong Kong is, quote, sufficiently autonomous from China. If U.S. lawmakers are not satisfied, they have promised to retract the city's special status as a free port. The move was denounced severely by 7 Chinese political bodies, including the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as a gross interference in China's domestic affairs. The Hong Kong Special Administrative Region government also described the bill as unnecessary and unwarranted. How impactful will such a bill be to U.S. Hong Kong and U.S. China relations, and who will eventually pay the price? I'm joined from Hong Kong by Lawrence Ma, barrister and chairman of Hong Kong Legal Exchange Foundation, and here in the studio by Harvey Zoding, senior fellow from the Center for China and Globalization. Gentlemen, welcome to The Point. First of all, let's take a closer look at the Senate version of this bill. Now, according to that version, the State Department shall report annually to Congress as to whether Hong Kong is sufficiently autonomous from China to justify its unique treatment. The report shall address issues including civil liberties in Hong Kong and how any erosion to Hong Kong's autonomy impacts areas of U.S.-Hong Kong cooperation. So, Lawrence, on what ground does the U.S. Congress believe they have the rights or justification to judge Hong Kong's autonomy or its legal practices?
Well, it is their full right of the U.S. Congress to legislate their own law. There's no doubt about it. They have legislative supremacy of their own country. However, this act, or proposed act, is in direct contravention with a United Nations resolution 2131, which stated that no country or no state has the right to intervene directly or indirectly for any reason whatsoever in the internal or external affairs of any state, and this including the use of any economic or political means. Now, this U.S. Proposed act has the effect of or would proposed to block or freeze any transactions or property transactions of anyone blacklisted. Now, this is what they wanted to blacklist some Hong Kong officials if these Hong Kong officials were attempting or to bring about any rendition of Hong Kong resident to the mainland China for trial. Now, this is really an internal, whether someone can be brought from the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region for an offense committed in the mainland China is a matter internal within the People's Republic of China, because Hong Kong SAR is no doubt a territory or a special administration region of the People's Republic of China. This is a blatant intervention in the internal affairs of the People's Republic of China.
Yeah, it seems, the United States does not at this moment say Hong Kong is not part of China, and yet when they are enacting such a, or when they're proposing, drafting such a bill, it's very clear that they are treating it as if it is not. By the way, it's not just in that resolution that stipulates that countries should not interfere in each other's internal affairs. It's in the UN Charter, which means it's the fundamental principle of international relations, and yet again and again, when it comes to China's internal affairs, and basically in many other parts of the world, the U.S. has brought it upon itself, saying this has something directly to do with me, so I'm going to decide how you are going to be treated. Harvey, exactly what is so wrong with this, with these two bills?
Well, I think that what's wrong with these bills is that they do interfere with China's autonomy, and what's wrong with the situation is that there's no world government that can say no to the United States. The U.S. may not have the right under the UN Charter to do this, but they're doing it anyway. For too long, the U.S. has been the world's policeman. They're now withdrawing from that role, but this is one instance where they're continuing to poke their finger in other countries' eyes, and here they're poking their finger in China's eye.
Yeah, and I find it rather astonishing is the kind of unanimous support that they're getting both in the House and in the Senate. It seems that the entire Congress are just so obsessed with the false logics reflected in these bills, and they just, you know, see absolutely no problem with that the U.S. does this to other countries' internal affairs. Again, Harvey.
Well, we're a strong country, or we have been in terms of international relations, and I think that this is still related to that philosophy and that mindset. And if you look at it through the eyes of a congressman or senator, this is a cheap vote. No money's being expended. I think that they're going to get votes from their constituents for this. So it's easy for them to stick their finger in China's eye. They don't realize that every action that they take has consequences, and that this may have serious consequences down the road in terms of how China and U.S. conduct their bilateral relations. So it's going to be a very difficult situation if this law, if this bill becomes a law.
Yeah, you talked about this being a very cheap bill, but actually the businesses that are going to be impacted if it does become enacted is actually not small at all. The spokesperson of the Hong Kong SAR government said that the laws could affect, for instance, according to U.S. statistics, the U.S. actually has the largest worldwide bilateral trade surplus with Hong Kong over the last 10 years at over $33 billion in 2018, and according to the latest statistics from Invest Hong Kong and the Census and Statistics Department of Hong Kong, there are 1,344 U.S. companies in Hong Kong, of which 278 are regional headquarters. At the same time, there are about 85,000 U.S. citizens living in Hong Kong. So, Lawrence, by sanctioning potentially anybody who are considered to be, you know, against the human rights standards of the United States, by hijacking the special free port treatment of Hong Kong, what kind of jeopardy is the U.S. Congress putting these local businesses and business people in, Lawrence?
Well, honestly, I mean, United Nations, the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act is an act to amend the Hong Kong Policy Act. Now, you have to understand that the Hong Kong Policy Act is an act which gives Hong Kong a special economic status, where there has been import quotas and certificate of origins matters. But all this were important to Hong Kong when Hong Kong was a manufacturing economy. Back in the 80s or early 70s, early 80s. Hong Kong has moved away from a manufacturing economy long ago, and it is now a service industry, a tourism center, and a financial hub of Asia. So it has done away with manufacturing long ago. So if the act actually done away the certificate of origins and import quotas for Hong Kong, I don't think it really has much of any impact on Hong Kong economies at all, other than its funding of the protesters in Hong Kong currently, which are more damaging than this act.
And that leads to my next question, which is about the timing of this bill. It seems that the bill went through an expedited process, and that it was allowed to pass without any objections, and it seems that it passed right in time before local district council elections are to be held in Hong Kong this weekend. Harvey, do you see any coincidence here, or is there an agenda that's being set? Because right after the bill got passed through, the Apple Daily, which is very much behind the riots and the very extreme actions, came out and cheered for the passing of this bill?
No, I don't think it's a coincidence at all. I think it's a strategic timing. And I believe that the people in Hong Kong who favor the violent demonstrators are cheered by this. And I believe that they would like to influence further the district elections on Sunday in Hong Kong, elections which are expected in any case not to go Beijing's way, but to go the way of, let's say, the pro-independence people in Hong Kong. And also, I think the vote is timed in the United States Congress to take advantage of the fact that people in America are somewhat horrified by the violence, the level of violence in Hong Kong, and I think are hoping that this violence can be abated because it's very serious and there's been loss of life already.
So, are you saying, just help me be absolutely clear, are you saying that some American people are horrified by the violence that's seen on the streets of Hong Kong, but they don't really know where it comes from? Or do you think they understand what's happening? Because according to Republican Senator Marco Rubio, who has been behind this bill, he said Beijing is behind the violence and repression in Hong Kong. That's why he needs to send, or the Senate needs to send a clear message to the people fighting for freedom in Hong Kong that America is behind them, that, you know, Beijing has been undermining their authority. That's why the United States Congress is showing a clear sign of support. Exactly what kind of influence, what kind of violence are we talking about, Harvey?
Well, I think Senator Rubio is speaking with a forked tongue. He's a person who's taken every opportunity to step on the rights of people in Cuba, and so I think he's being a little disingenuous singling out China and Hong Kong. I think there's some confusion in America about where this violence comes from. The Chinese government has made assertions that the U.S. is supporting this kind of violence. Senator Rubio says the Chinese government is supporting this violence. Is an incredible thing to say. So I think there's a lack of clarity. But I think now with President Trump's stance on the trade war and his general situation in terms of bilateral relations, the American public is quite angry about anything that's happening that pertains to China. I think there's confusion. I think the Congress, the Senate especially, is taking advantage of that.
Okay. Lawrence, what is your take on the potential impact of this bill on the upcoming district council elections?
Well, I think this is not particularly targeted at the district council election. I think it was targeted at what President Xi has just said, that Hong Kong government, together with the legal profession and the judiciary, has a responsibility to stop the violence. I think it is because of the central government's statement on this. They have then put this bill on a hotline, so-called.
To bind the hands of anybody.
Yes, to bind the hands.
Okay.
That would really wanting to undermine any of central authorities' statement on combating violence in Hong Kong as a countermeasure to hand tie any government officials in Hong Kong wanting to implement any measures to stop violence in Hong Kong.
Well, it seems that at this moment we still don't know whether what's going to happen to this act. President Trump has been quiet on it. He's supposed to sign or reject it. We do not know. And if he rejects it, there is still a chance that this bill could be put into law anyway because of the high level of support it's supposed to get from members of Congress. So that's going to take some time. Let's hope that the situation is still manageable because China has reacted very strongly and has vowed that China will fight back if the U.S. continues down the wrong path. Many thanks to my two guests, Lawrence Ma joining us from Hong Kong and Harvey Zodin joining us here in the Beijing studio.